Welcome back, everyone. We're sitting here today with our new founder and chairman of the board, Caleb Arthur. Caleb's going to talk about a recent trip to San Francisco where he was searching and looking for new solar panel manufacturing businesses and insights and those kinds of things.
So thanks, Jock. Happy to be back now as the former CEO of Sun Solar. So that's a new thing. You know, you gave me the new business cards, but I still want to say CEO every time I go somewhere after saying it for 12 years. But yeah, myself and Pete Fisher, our CFO at Sun Solar, he's also vital in the solar panel manufacturing business that I'm getting into. And so we went out there along with one of our other co-founders, Robert Benedict, and so what we did was we spent quite a bit of time at this solar panel manufacturing conference. What's unique is that the solar industry is so large and diverse now. Conferences that you went to 10, 11, 12 years ago, there might be a few hundred people there. Now the RE Plus, I just came back from that maybe 3 weeks ago out in Vegas, and there was 40,000 plus people there. And it's just wild to see the industry blossom the way it has. But this was a much smaller, tailored conference just for solar manufacturing. And the one thing that's very apparent is that there's very large international folks, Chinese-owned, Italian-owned, German-owned companies, even in India. Virtually all these countries that currently produce solar panels are trying to rapidly speed up their deployment of manufacturing in the United States. And the reason why is the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed a little over a year ago, that set up an incentive program to have manufacturers create and manufacture panels here in the United States versus buying panels from China and overseas, which 80+% of them come from like the Asia, Chinese type countries. And the big thing is that I think COVID taught us that we need to manufacture as much as humanly possible here in the United States.
Yeah.
The problem with solar panel manufacturing is like the space that I'm getting into first is the lowest bar of entry into solar panel manufacturing, and that's that's the assembly of the module. So you're taking the cells, the little square cells that everybody sees when they see a solar panel. You're taking all of those and you're virtually welding all of those together, and then you're putting the glass on there, you're putting the back sheet on there, you're putting all the glues, you're connecting all the wires, you're taking all the aluminum, or now they're starting to come out with steel framing for solar panels.
Well, those are going to be heavy.
I know. It's probably going to be more for like utility scale, but
yeah,
part of the incentive is to try to manufacture all the components in the United States. And manufacturing steel is something that the United States is already pretty well versed at. The interesting things that I've been learning over the last year of getting into assembly and manufacturing of the solar panel is that there's no glass that's being made in the United States. Like all the glass comes from overseas. So there's nobody that even can make glass for solar panels in the United States. But yet, when Congress passed this Inflation Reduction Act, they want you to use like 100% domestic content to assemble your panels, but yet hardly anybody makes those cells. Nobody makes the glass. And there's literally one company in the entire United States named First Solar. If you look them up, they're an amazing business. They're the only ones that are going to qualify for the extra incentive of this manufacturing. So talking to the Department of Energy loan, like the U.S. Department of Energy loan program folks, and the scientists and experts that are at these conferences, I'd say it's from 20 to 40% of the range that they think of actual companies that have announced that will actually be able to pull off manufacturing solar panels. So there is a like 60 to 80% chance that like my business doesn't even happen, right? So according to the statistics, right? But I also look back and say, what was the chance of Sun Solar starting from scratch, becoming the largest installer in the Midwest and the 33 largest in the nation over the last 12 years.
Probably pretty close to 60 to 80%.
Yeah, I mean, it might have been the same kind of stats, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it hasn't deterred me. It actually gives me more determination to figure out all the puzzle pieces. And when you think about setting up a manufacturing plant, when you've never been in the manufacturing world, right? My other 3 co-founders, thankfully, have all ran or overseen or developed manufacturing plants, so that helps a lot. 2 of them in the solar industry, so like,
Oh yeah.
So we have, a vast knowledge of solar panel manufacturing, but, I'm going to be the owner and chairman of the manufacturing company. And so learning every small detail about every piece and component that goes into solar panels is wild. Like, people in our industry that aren't in solar panel manufacturing, I think they just take it for granted that we can just order pallets of panels and they show up in shipping containers, and we just go sling them on people's roofs and go on, right? And the scale that you need to make a solar panel manufacturing feasible is for assembly is a 1.5 gigawatt manufacturing facility, and that spits out so many panels. It's unbelievable. People think that what we do at Sun Solar is unbelievable. We install 25 to 30 megawatts per year. 25 to 30 megawatts per year.
And a megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts.
Yeah,
right?
But 1,000 megawatts is a gigawatt. So it's going to be 1,500 megawatts that this plant spits out, and I only currently consume 25 to 30 megawatts. So like, I'll obviously be able to self-consume the panels that are manufactured by my manufacturing company for Sun Solar's customers, which is like my dream come true, right? But that leaves a lot of extra to have to go broker and sell, right? And one of my co-founders is a broker, so I mean, he's going to be able to sell a lot of the panels. We have a lot of industry connections, but just the amount of panels this thing's going to spit out is wild.
How big of a facility do you need?
Yeah, so a 200,000 square foot facility for just the assembly of a 1.5 gigawatt. If we wanted to manufacture the cells, though, and that's like the big thing, like it's $100 million to do panel assembly.
Okay.
It's anywhere from 400 million to $1 billion to manufacture the cells.
$1 billion? With a B?
Yeah. So that's the problem. Is right now the U.S. federal government is only looking at doing loan guarantees for the upstream raw material and the upstream components like cell manufacturing. So the federal government tells me right now, hey, no support from us. So everybody that has been making comments about like, this is just going to be totally taxpayer subsidy driven for you, there will be some tax credits once the manufacturer is up and going. There will be some local and state incentives, things like that. But the federal government's pretty much saying you are too small with your $100 million investment for us to even take you serious. You need to go deploy a $400 to $1 billion cell manufacturing facility before we want to play ball in that. I totally see the reason why, because the cell manufacturing the cells is such a critical component for making a solar module.
And no one does it.
And yeah, nobody's hardly doing. I mean, like First Solar does it, right? But there's But most of the announcements, if you Google like, new solar manufacturing, there are probably 20 to 30 gigawatts of cell manufacturers announced, but who actually pulls it off? I think there's a Italian company announced in Oklahoma, and they're talking. I think they're going to do a $6 billion investment in Oklahoma to manufacture cells and the panels, and they're going to do it all in one facility. If you had to guess, what size facility do you think that is, square footage?
It's got to be like the Tesla Gigafactory. Just, I mean, a million square foot?
2 million square feet is what they're projecting.
Holy cow.
I know. So when I see my 200,000 square foot facility, because there's one in St. Louis, Missouri, and then kind of one in East St. Louis, Illinois, and both those facilities are around 200,000 square foot. Our building, our headquarters here, I think is 12,000, and then our building across the street that we own is probably close to that. It's probably like 10,000.
Yeah.
So, when you're looking at 20,000 plus, you're like, that's a lot of room, right?
Yeah.
And then a few weeks ago, I'm at the St. Louis facility, and all they have is the walls up. They're still putting the roof and everything on, and this could be done by the end of the year, by the time we get our manufacturing equipment, right? Which we might end up in Illinois, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know yet. So the 200,000 square foot facility, 200,000 square foot is like kind of mind-boggling when you're standing in it.
Yeah.
But then think about 2 million.
Yeah, that's crazy. You got to take a golf cart to get to the other end or something.
Oh yeah, no, you're not.
You're not
I mean, if you're
walking it.
walking it, you're going to take 30 minutes or however long, right?
Yeah.
So it's a wild. But the other big things. So like, I thought everybody was going to be just ripping on China, kind of like they do in politics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot to be said for the innovation. Like I was kind of anti-China going into this thing, right? Because the only people that manufacture the actual manufacturing equipment, which sounds weird every time I say that, the manufacturers of the manufacturing equipment, all the best ones in the world are like based in China. Because they've deployed so many hundreds of millions of solar panels that they've had to really get down the manufacturing equipment lines and the automation. And the automation is the wild part. So when we first started a year ago, most of the manufacturing equipment we were looking at would require 45 to 60 people per shift, and you run 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week. You can't shut these things down. I mean, you can, but not if you're going to actually make it pay for itself, right? Because you need to spit out panels every second. So 45, 50, 55 people, whatever, you know. So I'm at the conference. I'm talking to this German engineer who's got like a PhD and is way smarter than me. And he's been in solar, he said, at least 20 years. He might have said 25. Something insane number, right?
Whoa.
And so we're talking about the equipment. And I was asking about automation and like, you know, artificial intelligence, automation, like all these things, right? Because this guy, he builds solar manufacturing facilities. Like he has 55 engineers that work for him, and that's all they do worldwide. And they're building like 3 in the United States right now. And he said that there is certain automation that can be included now to where like robots are pulling the raw materials out of semis, stacking them, moving them over to the line, the assembly line, moving all the pieces with the robots. And then when it's done, they get palletized, the panels do, and then robots can store them, and then robots can take these stored panels and pallets and then load them on trucks.
Wow.
He said that there are some facilities that are on track that are going to be our size to go down to between 7 and 12 people per shift.
Wow, that's a big difference from 50 to 60.
Yeah. So when people think that automation and artificial intelligence is another 10, 15 years away, like they're including it right now today.
They're building it.
And so as a business owner, I you know, to be quite frank, I have to make a decision on, do I want to employ 45 to 60 people per shift and buy less automated equipment, or do I want to spend? And I'll tell you the thing that goes behind this. It's 2 reasons. It's not just to cut out labor. It's to be and stay competitive with Chinese manufacturers that are 10 years ahead of where we're manufacturing right now in the United States. And we let that happen, right? We are the innovative creators of the world in the United States. We innovate and create more amazing things, in my opinion, which obviously I'm from the United States, so maybe my opinion's not valid. But I feel like we're like the innovator creators of the world. And we allowed China to take over control of the raw materials, the manufacturing, and the distribution of solar panels for the last 20 years. So mostly what a lot of these really intelligent engineers were saying is that we have the Chinese to thank for their advancements in solar panel manufacturing, but we just need to stand on their shoulders and take it to the next step versus trying to replace them or make them irrelevant. Like we do have to thank them for what they've been doing. Now, people might disagree with that, but when you look at what they're able to do versus what we're currently able to do, we would not have the ramp up time. Like, I can seriously order equipment, have it here in 4 to 5 months set up and running from a Chinese manufacturer. If it wasn't for them doing that, And they're the only ones that make this stuff, by the way, right? Like Germany doesn't make it, Italy doesn't make it. Nobody makes this manufacturing.
The actual equipment to manufacture the panels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to like build machines from scratch, it would take years of trial and error to figure this stuff out, right? And so, like, now here's the thing: I want to beat China. I want to use their technology. I want to make it my own. Like, I don't want their software to be spying on me and my data and all that, right? So I have to get kind of as fully automated as I can, but use like these German engineers to put enough firewalls and figure out the software side of that thing, right? Which luckily we have our own software guys and stuff at SunSolar, right? So it's like figuring out how to use the technology from China, make it our own, and then hopefully in a few years the manufacturing equipment will start ramping up, because a lot of this manufacturing equipment's good for 5 to 6 years, then you have to update it, right? But to go back to my labor thing, so every manufacturer's looking at this right now, and here's the problem. It would cost me about $2 million more to buy a fully automated type system with a minimal amount of human labor. My payroll with 60 people, you could be at a couple million a month, depending on like 60 people per shift, 3 shifts, all the management staff, 250, 300 employees.
180 people on the clock a day.
I know what SunSolar's payroll runs, right? So if you cut that by 2/3, you pay for that automation very quickly, less than 6 months, sometimes in a few months. So every manufacturer in the world right now is trying to figure out how to reduce the actual human input of the manufacturing. And if you don't, you go bankrupt, because your cost to manufacture that equipment is so much higher than somebody that has the fully automated stuff. And here's the thing: I am considered like a small fish in the manufacturing pond. Like, even though people are taking us serious, they're working with us. Like, to do a 1.5 gigawatt manufacturing facility, that's like the smallest thing you can do to get into the industry and be competitive.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And 10 years ago, if you did 50 megawatts, 50 megawatts a year, you could get into the industry. Now you have to do 1.5 gigawatts to get into the industry. So, it's going to keep a lot of the small to large residential commercial installers like myself. It's going to keep a lot of them out of the market. It's mostly going to be like these big money, private equity, big manufacturers, Chinese owned, Italian owned, like all these big guys coming in. There's some American owned, but there's very few. So, being from the Midwest, born and raised here, owning a business in the Midwest, it's like, I feel like I'm called to at least try. But like, mark my words, if like I fail doing this, I'm going to like fail moving forward, learning how to get better at it, because you just don't start a manufacturer this size without a good enough business plan where you just go bankrupt, right? Like, you can make good money doing it. You just got to plan it out. So we've literally spent like an entire year of planning every day and every week just to get to the point we're at now. And we're not even 100% sure to go yet, right? We still have to secure some of the financing pieces, the incentives, and everybody wants to always talk about like taking taxpayer dollars. Guess what? Every industry has it. Like, you wouldn't have a cell phone, you wouldn't have food to eat, you wouldn't have gas to put in your car if those industries weren't subsidized somewhere or the other. Like, true free market capitalism doesn't exist in our country, right? I mean, look at our utility grid. They're monopoly controlled from monopoly utility companies, right? And they control everything. You have to buy your electricity from them. That's why we exist, because we try to enter the free market capitalistic type society and sell solar panels, but we have all these rules and regulations we have to jump through.
Red tape.
And then we're told, no, you can't do it because, your overlords didn't sign off on it, between the city and the county or the utility or whatever, right? So, I understand the subsidy debate, but like, you either have to get rid of subsidies for every industry and everybody and just leave everybody on a total level playing field, but it would literally destroy our economy overnight. Once you get using those things in industries, you can't just easily take them away, right? Now, the good thing is that if we're going to invest and use taxpayer money wisely, picking things like solar energy, where solar is the lowest cost of energy anywhere in the entire world now, for new development, nothing can beat solar. Now, arguments will be made that solar isn't stable. Like the Missouri Co-op's famous line is, the wind the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. So what are we supposed to do, right? Well, that doesn't mean that we don't do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that we need to be innovative and come up with solutions. And that's, hydroelectric storage, like acting like a battery, where Ameren's built the dam and the lake on top of a mountaintop. It's obviously refining and building better battery storage that you can deploy at homes. The batteries they're using in cars are obviously can be plugged into the grid and charge and discharge into the grid or into the car, so that's bidirectional with the vehicles. So there's so much opportunity out there to stabilize and build our grid for the future, but what we have is not working. Like, people act like utility rates are skyrocketing because of renewables. Well, why were utility rates skyrocketing before renewables came online? Why haven't rates stayed extremely low forever, right? So to blame it on renewables is just a fallacy that people use to try to get their point of view across, even though they might not understand it. And being a more conservative type person and understanding the place that fossil fuels has in our mix, I totally understand that, but I don't think that we give up on innovation. There's a lot of people that are against nuclear, but some of these small nuclear modular reactors, the technology behind that seems very fascinating to me. And while I have reservations about like more nuclear energy waste and where we're going to store it and what we're going to do with it, like there's got to be better solutions out there with nuclear battery storage, solar, wind, because this is the direction our planet's headed. Like, we're not going to stop this movement, right? Like,
we're not going to need less electricity.
Yeah, you're going to need more with all the electric vehicles. I mean, our electricity needs are skyrocketing with when you make semis electric, cars electric. Yeah. I mean, you're talking right now where if, let's say, like a local trucking company with 200 trucks wanted to turn them all into EVs and charge them in Springfield, it might be almost what Springfield's total electricity needs are now, right? Like all the industrial and homes. So
they just double it.
Semi-EVs suck a massive amount of energy in a short amount of time. So those are all innovative things that we can overcome. But I think just to stick our head in the sand and say, let's fight against it longer, it's not a political thing anymore. It is an economic viable thing. If all the Fortune 500 companies weren't going to be able to reduce their energy costs by going solar, they wouldn't do it. I'm in these meetings. If I can't prove to them that they have a 3, 4, or 5 year payback time, they're not going to invest in it. Like, they're not just wasting money to look green. I can promise you that. If they're going to waste money to look green, they're just going to roll out a marketing campaign and say, hey, we'll do renewables 20 years from now. But they're not. They're doing renewables right now in massive droves. The biggest movement, and you can think corporations are evil or whatnot, right? But there's great corporations that have went solar. I mean, you think of like O'Reilly Auto Parts, Vital Farms, like all these local big, even though Vital Farms isn't local, they have a local, distribution hub here that we've built solar for. But there's a lot of great companies that have great ownership thought process, and they're investing in it. And it's not because they're worried. I mean, do you think O'Reilly Auto Parts is worried about their customers thinking that they're going green or not? No, they're doing it to save money. Right?
Why do you think all the utilities are building utility solar farms?
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know it, but there's a huge gas station chain called Casey's, right? And a lot of us maybe watching this have seen the Casey's gas stations. They put a 500,000 watt system, 500 kW, on their distribution facility they built in Joplin. People in the fossil fuel industry are, investing in renewables. So it's like,
yeah, what are you going to do? Burn gas to turn the lights on?
They're buying electricity, and they know they can generate their own electricity with solar. So, it's one of those things. I got a little bit off topic, but I just want everybody to understand that, like, the solar manufacturing thing is not an easy feat for me. I'm not. People go, "Are you like scared? Are you worried?" It's like, no, dude. Like, I'm excited about trying to figure this thing out, because anytime somebody tells me that I can't do something, it just tries me to make me succeed at it. And I remember so many people at the beginning of Sun Solar thought that I wasn't going to be able to make Sun Solar grow. So to leave Sun Solar leadership team and the new CEO to run it, and me to help when I can. But my main focus is making this manufacturing thing happen. And we have such great partners from the banks to the states that we've talked to our leadership team. I mean, we have every piece that you need to make it happen. And it's funny because the number one thing that everybody said at the manufacturing conference is that funding is the number one thing that's going to hold us back. Getting the funding and then getting it at a low enough interest rate, because our interest rates are extremely high from the Fed. So thank you, Fed, for making that much harder for me. I mean, it's always our wonderful government that figures out how to screw everything up, right?
Yep.
So, let's keep doing updates on how it's going. But I'm very driven. I'm very excited. It seems like people are taking our initiative very serious. I mean, if I tried to do manufacturing right now without Sun Solar's history, background, and success, and the team that I have, nobody would take me serious, you know? So it feels very nice to be able to try to take on something so large and have a team of people supporting you. And that's my last closing thing is that if you can surround yourself with people that think and feel like you do and have experience in some of the fields that you're trying to get into, it makes your success happen so much faster. Because my success growing Sun Solar was a big struggle, not having necessarily the right people around me. Even though I had great family and people around me, none of us had ran a big company and had that experience. And so, if you can keep surrounding yourself with really good people that understand how to challenge you, right? Because if you're the smartest guy in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Like, you need to always be bringing in people. And I've got people on my leadership team that are way more experienced and intelligent than I am. But we all run our own businesses, right? Every one of our co-founders in the solar manufacturing, we all run our own day-to-day businesses. And so it's quite the juggle to like, oh, this is my side, this is my $100 million
side hustle.
Yeah, side hustle. Like, you can't really get that wrong, right? But now it's my main hustle, right? I'm stepping out of the day-to-day of Sun Solar, and well, that's been my baby and felt great to accomplish that, like on to bigger and better things, right? And what I want to see is I want to see Sun Solar grow fast enough to compete with my manufacturing, right? And I think Mark and Earl and Aaron and Matt and Jimmy and all the leadership team, I mean, I think they can definitely do that. But now it's going to create some competition, right? Now it's going to be like the Sun Solar team versus like the Sun Solar manufacturing team, right? And so it's going to be a fun, wild ride. So thank you, everybody, for watching the day. I know it was a long video, but this is like content that I want people to be able to take something out of and be able to educate themselves. So thank you.